So you see it there, the U.S. carrying out a fresh round of strikes against Iran, all in an attempt to counter Tehran's aggression in the Strait of Hormuz. Just a short time ago, President Trump said on Fox and Friends that Iran should start seeing the writing on the wall.
Well, they have no chance. Look, we have them in the run. Most of their equipment is gone. Their anti-aircraft stuff is gone. We hit them very hard last night. Every time they send a drone, we hit them very hard. But we had a deal. What nobody knows, we had a deal. It was a done deal. And then they broke it. They always break it. We've had 10 deals with these people, and so we're just going to hit them very hard. And we're gonna keep the strait, and we'll probably run it. We'll become the guardian of the strait. Maybe we'll call it the guardian angel of the strait, and we should be reimbursed for that.
Correspondent Mike Tobin is joining us live in Tel Aviv with the latest on this. And Mike, it was a busy weekend for the U.S. military.
It certainly was, and Iran has been striking back by firing on its neighbors. Oman, Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait all took fire. The Kuwaitis say they had border crossings and even an oil rig that was struck. If you've been looking at social media and you've seen some of the traffic that U.S. service members in Kuwait were injured, that is not true, according to U.S. Central Command. Now, Iran says they were not aiming at their neighboring countries. Rather, they were aiming at places where U.S. personnel and weapons are based.
We will not hesitate to defend ourselves. Any area or part of the country that is used to launch attacks against the Islamic Republic of Iran will naturally be subject to defensive measures.
The U.S. has now carried out 4 rounds of strikes in Iran since Tuesday. Everything from maritime targets used to menace shipping in the strait was hit. Land-based and sea-based fighter jets, as well as guided missiles fired from ships, were used in the attack. This was triggered by Iran striking now 4 ships that travel outside of the route they have designated to the north of the strait. The latest was a Cyprus-flagged cargo ship that is now disabled, and one crew member, a sailor from India, is missing. Now, Mark Wallace at United Against a Nuclear Iran says threatening the strait is the only weapon Iran has left.
The control of the Strait of Hormuz and their effort to try to control that is their desperate effort to regain or try to assert regional hegemony, control in the region. And I think that it's, as long as this regime is in power, they're going to try to exert whatever leverage they can. And the Strait of Hormuz is really their last gasp because their other tools are gone.
Upwards of 20 vessels crossed the strait yesterday, and that's roughly half the volume we saw since a week ago when Iran first started firing on commercial shipping. Bill, back to you.
All right. Mike Tobin live in Tel Aviv, Israel this morning. Mike, thank you.
Here with us now for more details on this, Rebeccah Heinrichs, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute. Rebeccah, thanks for being here,
Good to be here
with us. We're about halfway through the 60-day period that the MOU signed by President Trump and the Iranians is supposed to be executed in. Do you feel good about where we are right now?
No, I don't. Not about the MOU. I do feel good about what the U.S. military is doing to make sure that the strait is open for shipping. So U.S. Central Command just had a wave of strikes again last night,
right.
But they had waves of strikes the previous nights as well. And now you've seen about 800 to 900 ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. It's because of the U.S. Navy. It is not because the Iranians are complying with the terms of the MOU. I saw on X this morning that Gallup of the Iranian side is still pointing to various provisions of the MOU and claiming that the United States is not complying with it. The main
laughable,
one,
right?
It's laughable,
Yeah.
although I will say Provision 5 was one I've always been worried about because it looked like there was going to be misunderstanding there. The Iranians are claiming that it grants them, the Iranians, management of the strait. Of course, the United States is not going to permit that to happen, so that's the point of contention.
It certainly seems like Iran has just been playing games this whole time, right? Just stringing along the United States, trying to extend these negotiations, knowing that the midterms are coming up, there's going to be political pressure here at home, gas prices are going to go up, and it seems like the IRGC just doesn't care. They're just a wild bronco, and they're trying to increase that pressure. Where does Trump go from here? I mean, obviously, we restarted these strikes over the weekend, but do we really just need to bring the full hammer down and go back to full combat operations?
So a couple of things. One, on the sort of tapping us along, the Iranian regime claims that there was a mistake whenever the IRGC fired at these tankers. But as you pointed out, Bill, Vahidi is the head of the IRGC, and he has never complied with any of this. And he has been determined to continue to fire in the Strait. It insists that the Iranians are going to keep control over the Strait. So I do think that we're going to see a series of increased military operations to degrade the Iranian ability to coerce through the Strait. That's why you see all of what Central Command is hitting, is all of these coastal defenses, these one-way attack drones from the air and from the sea. And I think if this isn't going to, if it doesn't move quickly enough to degrade these capabilities, you may see an increased number of combat operations on mainland Iran.
I had a chance to talk to Ambassador to NATO Matt Whitaker yesterday on the heels of this incredibly consequential trip in Turkey last week, where he accompanied the president. I asked him, Rebecca, about Iran failing to meet the Saturday deadline that President Trump had set for the regime to publicly acknowledge these continued strikes were a big mistake. They obviously missed that deadline. Take a listen to what he said.
I think the reason Iran is trying to target him and the reason this has come up as a legitimate threat is that he is making a bigger difference as it relates to Iran and their capacity to invoke terror and inflict chaos in the Middle East. He's making more progress on that end than any president in the last 47 years.
In the beginning part of that soundbite, he was actually talking about the plot by Iran to assassinate President Trump, another major problem.
Right. So the Iranians have not changed their ways at all. They do not want to go a different course than the one that they've gone for 47 years. So there are plots to kill the president's daughter, Ivanka, and that was thwarted by the FBI. And now, of course, we see continued threats. We just saw the funeral of the supreme leader, in which there were all kinds of calls to assassinate various Americans, including President Trump. So this regime has not changed. The other thing I would say that it's going to change, too, I think, on the U.S. side, is I hope to see a reimposition of the blockade, because the blockade was really effective in squeezing the Iranians. And now that the Treasury Department has taken back this waiver on sanctions, this waiver on sanctions has allowed the Iranians to collect $5 billion over the last 3 weeks. So I suspect we're going to see economic pressure resumed again, maximum force again, while these military strikes continue.
Rebecca, thanks for joining us. Good to see you today and hear your analysis.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.